Hello and welcome to the Very Wool Podcast. My name is Diana Hawthorne and you can find me online as Delaware Spinster. We're going to talk a little bit about knitted and crochet whips that I have that I've been working on, and of course a little bit of spinning because it is still Tour de Fleece. This is probably going to be my last podcast episode during Tour de Fleece. But first, let's talk about what I'm wearing. I am wearing I think this may have been my first crochet garment, but it's really hard to kind of tell. I didn't keep great records in the beginning, but this is the Cirrus crochet top by Expression Fiber Arts, and I modified it a little bit. I was a pretty new crocheter, so it's not perfect, but anyway, I'm still wearing it. It's light and breezy. I'll share it with you here. So it's kind of flowy, which I like, a little bit drapey. I did do stripes, which were not called for in the pattern, but the open spots, it is double crochet, and then it has sort of almost like filet crochet, like a lace open row every few rows. This is supposed to be a boat neck top. So it's supposed to be connected kind of like this. And I did not know at the time when I started working on this that I don't like that. It's very uncomfortable, I find, for me. And I think I've talked before about how sensitive I am about things right across my neck. So I ended up at the end, after making these two big squares, I ended up kind of improvising some straps. And I constantly think about going back and fixing this a little bit, but as with so many of my earlier crochet and knitted projects, this yarn is discontinued. So this was Hobbii, like the 8/4 Rainbow, but in the stonewash finish. So most of it is this sort of stonewash, almost white, speckled. This was the first time that I got excited about a speckled yarn. And I really enjoyed working with it, and it's actually aged pretty well. I do wear it in spring and summer. It kind of feels like a spring and summer garment. And unfortunately, that stonewash yarn is no longer. And I also, back then, wasn't thinking about mending or modifying things, so I didn't keep scraps. I used scraps for other things. I donated scraps when I donated yarn that I wasn't using anymore. I don't know. I did not keep any. I now keep little jars of scraps because it's super important to me to be able to go back and fix things, but I just wasn't thinking about longevity with this garment. And I was so excited to finish, again, perhaps my first, maybe second wearable garment with crochet. So I didn't think about it. Hobbii still makes that 8/4 yarn, but they also changed the base. So even the solid ones feel a little different today than they did when I had ordered it in like 2018. So I can't think of how I'm gonna fix the top. I might at some point get around to it, but you know, it's wearable. I kind of still think it's cute. I like the drape of it. And I think it's, you know, it has like the lace element to it, but it's still pretty solid. So I still feel comfortable enough in terms of coverage. I wouldn't exactly wear it to work, or maybe to see my in-laws, but around the house, you know, going to anywhere in town that I do go, which is, I don't get out much. So, you know, I feel like it's not offensive and kind of sheer things are in anyway. So I do get wear out of it. I do find it comfortable. I am surprised with how soft and light it feels when, you know, we're sort of taught at some point that like, oh, crochet is too thick for a garment, and you know, cotton is going to be heavy, and it, you know, it's going to be hard on your hands. It's going to be uncomfortable to wear, or whatever. That's not what I find. So it definitely makes me feel, when I wear this and a couple of my other crochet tops, I kind of think, gosh, I need to crochet some more tops. So they're in my queue, but yeah, I do like this. This was a free pattern. What attracted to me to this pattern in the beginning was like, oh, that looks like you make two rectangles and then you make it into something. I was really afraid of shaping. I felt like I couldn't do any type of sort of complex garment. So basically this is 2 squares or 2 rectangles, and then I ended up making these little rectangle straps, which again, someday I'm gonna go back and fix. I don't know, I might be able to frog them since I did them at the end, and get a little bit of yarn out of that and maybe just seam up sort of the edges a little bit further and make it a bigger, more open boat neck is one of my ideas. I also have other colors of that Hobbii 84 rainbow yarn, so there's a chance with another solid color I could kind of do a little something that matches the stripes a little better. Yeah, I've kind of thought about it, and I just honestly have not gotten a chance. You know how exciting it is to work on a new project or something you're close to finishing versus fixing something that's older. So at any rate, this kind of does bring up a point about the sweater that I'm working on, this top that I'm working on now. Haven't made a ton of progress since we last talked about this because of the fact that, again, it's been Tour de Fleece, but let's actually look at it and talk about it. So, so this is the Scotch Broom from Wool and Pine. It is a knitted broomstick lace, which I really loved doing. Let me try and show you which side is the front because I blocked that better. So, so here's this. I mean, they're the same lace panel. It's just this one was blocked before I assembled it. And so this is going to go like this. It is a boat neck top. However, this is a cashmere merino lace weight from Hedgehog fibers. It was a Potluck colorway, so unfortunately I can't get it again. Love it. But this is going to be a boat neck top across like this. And basically I've decided I'm not going to come as far in. If I come really far in with my seaming and I attach the shoulders up to here, then I end up with this situation. And that's even on a yarn this soft, it might look okay, but it doesn't feel comfortable to me. So right now I sort of mock attached to the shoulders. I seamed them just a little bit. And I know I had tried it on a couple podcasts ago. It kind of sits more open like this. I think that's what I'm going with. I am at the point now, I've started doing the little striping. Striping not called for in the pattern. Striping is a decision I've made because I only had one skein of this Potluck colorway, and I needed to extend it. I was worried it would be way too short. I do think my math is correct that it would be way too short. So I added 2 20-gram minis. I just love how the striping is coming out. I hope you can really see that. The stripes go very well with the rest of the speckling. So I'm very happy with it. I ended up doing 3 rows of the pink because it's that sort of lace weight and it's a little bit lighter, and then 2 rows of the gray or the green. So it is not a 2-2 stripe. It kind of looks like it is. It's a 3-2. And math-wise, that made sense to me because the lace weight yarn, it's a lace that's like 600 yards in 100 grams roughly. So as compared to the 400 or so with the fingering, it made sense to me to do a 3-2 stripe, and I think it looks great. I like it. I love a stripe. I think it's kind of fun. And then at the bottom of the garment where I split off and do the ribbing, it's just going to be the pink again. I'm not going to stripe within the ribbing. But I'm at the point now, I was planning on following the instructions, which means finishing the bottom first, but I thought, you know what? How I seam this alters how low it sits and where where I would start the ribbing, where I'd want to start the ribbing. So I think I am going to go ahead and use the other side of my Oh So Fine Cashmere yarn and seam up the shoulders for real and see how it's sitting on me. No pressure to do that right this moment. I might knit a few more rows. I had estimated that I wanted 8 rows of green and 8 rows of gray. And that kind of right now is feeling crazy. That feels like a lot. That would be double the amount of stripes that I currently have. I have 4 rows of green and 4 rows of gray. So if I was gonna go double that length, I feel like that would be pretty long before doing the ribbing. And that's not exactly what the pattern calls for. So, so I might block it again. I'm a big fan of a mid-project block. I might block it again. I might seam up the shoulders sooner. So as you can tell, as I'm talking about this, I've had a little bit of a stalling point. Like I know I want to knit more than I've knit, but I'm not 100% positive how much longer I'm going to go. So, so anyway, so that's where I am with this. I'm still absolutely loving it. So that's the good news, is that I love how this is coming out. It feels like butter. I wish you could, you know, squeeze the cashmere. It's just fantastic. I've never knit with anything with cashmere. And I know this is only like 15% cashmere or something. It's fantastic. So, so I'm loving it. It's going to be beautiful. I'd still like to get it done in the next few weeks. And I think that's possible. My issue has been Tour de Fleece. I have been so focused. It's now day 15, I want to say. I've been so focused on spinning. And in that process, I thought I finished this project, this teal bat spin that I've talked about a lot. I finished this spinning project. I have 9 skeins. The first one was a sample skein that I'm not in love with. I think it was just a little bit too thick, so I may not use that skein. I'm counting sort of the 8 more than that one, but I cast on this dress, and we'll talk about that next. So that also has been, that's been my knitting time instead of the top for myself. So let's rewind just a moment, because I did something really silly, and I finished all of this, and I was like, I'm reserving 4 bats. I'd spun like 30 bats. This was, I was aiming for like 800 grams at least, but I actually spun like a kilogram. And then I ended up with this situation where I made about a kilogram of bats. I had made a lot of bats, and I was like trying to estimate where I am in terms of what my yardage is going to be. I reserved 4 bats that are just sitting downstairs, you know, safely tucked away. And I decided not to spin those yet. And I decided to ply all of these, all of the singles that I had. It was a ton of singles, spun on a couple of my different wheels, as well as some by spindle. So I plied all of them. And then I had like these 7 skeins that I had finished after the previous 2. I plied 7 skeins during Tour de Fleece. The first 2 were sample skeins. They were previous, and I know we talked about those when I swatched them. But 7 skeins in a bucket, soaking, you know, rinsed them, spun them dry, hung them to dry, took some pictures, posted them, and found this. And this is another little bobbin, about a 4-ounce bobbin. This is how I store my singles, as a storage bobbin. So this was rewound off of one of my Aura bobbins, and I had set it aside because I was like, oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. I love this. This is my favorite bobbin. And I set it aside to add it in at the end when I was losing steam on my plying. I didn't ply it in. I was so upset when I saw this, because this is about another skein of yarn, and I don't just want to chain ply this, because if I just chain ply this, then it's not evening out my singles. Sometimes I spin a little thinner, sometimes I spin a little thicker. I'm a human, I'm imperfect. This is what handspun is. But if I chain ply this, the coloring's gonna look different, and I risk, it does seem sort of middle of the road for these singles. But anyway, so at this point I've decided what I'm gonna do, because I don't wanna be playing yarn chicken, I don't wanna be anxious about it, and I don't wanna get to the point where the dress is getting to be closer to done, And then I'm like, oh shoot, I've got to scramble and spin singles. So I'm setting this aside, and I'm going to pull out those other bats, spin them like this, because I just finished this spin, 2 weeks ago. So I still know how I spun it. I still have decent records for myself, and I have this as an example. I go ahead and spin the last 4 bats, which is not a small task. It's still quite a bit of spinning, and I'm in the middle of so many other things, but once I spin that in the next month is sort of my guideline for myself. I want to go ahead and spin those, apply them with this, and then I'll have probably 2 to 3 more skeins. So that makes a big difference for me in terms of yarn chicken. And it's worth it. And I just felt so discouraged. I don't know if you've ever done that, where you thought you were done a project and then realize you're very much not done and you just missed something. So it was sort of a silly thing that I did, and it's not something that I do often, although I do fairly often with my spindles find that, oh, I had this little bit on this one spindle after I apply a project. So that's not unusual. And I was smart enough to check my spindle bin and make sure, with Tour de Fleece, I had cleared off my spindles anyway, for the most part. So it was easier to search for any spindles that had this spin on them. But yeah, I just missed this. I rewound it, I set it aside, it was dumb. So the good news is I have a lot of this yarn. I might have enough even without that, but I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm determined to finish it, to really actually finish the spin. And I'm getting over that sort of stupid feeling that I have. And I have cast on this dress, and I'm happy with it. Right now, I've got it sort of on here. Let me just pop off one of these needles so it's not jingling so much. I sort of have this multi-needle set up just so that I could, as opposed to using my try-it-on tubing, I just knit across a second needle. So that's fine. So I'm gonna try and keep it, the jingling to a minimum. So this dress is knit from the bottom up, which is not my favorite thing, but I'm getting used to it. I understand why the choice was made for that. This is the Fenton dress by Pamela Wynne. And I'm just trying to show you some of it because it's a little bit cumbersome to have the whole thing. It has a garter stitch bottom. So it's like 9 rows of garter stitch in the round. And then you go ahead into the just stockinette, and it's going to be stockinette for a long time. It is thicker than I normally use because it is about a worsted weight. That's what the pattern called for. That's what my mom wanted. And it's also a denser fabric, which kind of makes sense for a dress. You don't really want to see your underwear and your bra through the dress, unless you're wearing what I'm wearing right now. But that's not like the choice aesthetically. It's not like a loose drapey. It's like a thick, warm fabric kind of a thing. Good coverage. So you can see this, I am just into my second skein, which I held up for you. Just a little bit of this is gone. My first skein was a smaller skein relatively. So this is about nearing 160, 170 yards at this point of progress. And I'd never done this before, but I chose to do helical knitting at the top instead of just like alternating stripes when I transition from the one skein to the next. It's really hard with handspun to not have it be obvious, like obvious striping where you change from one skein to the next if you're not doing any type of fancy color management. So I decided to do, because she's not a hand spinner, and I don't know how committed she is to the idea of having it kind of be stripy. So I decided to do helical knitting for a few rows to kind of blend them in terms of coloring and grist. So you can, in this one area, this is the area, you can see it's really obvious where that sort of one stripe is. That's fine by me. It's not as obvious elsewhere. It's just that kind of one section. But I'm happy with how it's coming out. You can definitely see the sparkles, and you can tell it's hand spun. I think it's really beautiful. I like it. I intentionally kind of have it on this 2 needle system this morning because my mom is coming over in an hour. And I am gonna have her, again, one more time sort of approve it. And we're going to talk about how long we want the skirt to be. I stole one of the many dresses from her closet, which has sort of a similar to this dress, empire bust. So, so I have that for comparison, but I just wanted to double check, since this fabric is so much thicker and it's wool, it's going to be completely different from that dress, which is sort of like a flowy, you know, some type of an artificial type of a fabric. I don't know. It's like a drapey knit polyester kind of a thing. So, so I want her to try that one on for me again, and sort of overlap with this and say like, yeah, I do think a 20-inch skirt is the right length or not, because I've done this in just a few days. So that means that I think this will come along, because of the gauge. It's going to come along a little bit faster, and because it is important to me to get this done relatively fast, and you never know what kind of hiccups are coming my way. I'm questioning a lot. This, the top of the skirt is going to be sort of pleated. So it ends up sitting, it has like pleats like this, that then it kind of tucks in for the waist to do that. And I don't know. There's a part of me that's really thinking about, would it be better to just do like circular decreases, or to do like waist shaping, the way that other skirts or dresses might do, as opposed to doing these pleats with this thicker fabric? I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I think it'll be a little bit easier to tell when I have a lot more of it, because of course the garter border is supposed to sit flat and is a little bit stiffer. So when I have a number of inches, I'm probably going to do a block, you know, do a wet block, and kind of see whether the fabric is a little bit easier on, try it on tubing to manipulate, whether it'd be easier to fold. So I'll probably do that when I get to like 12, 15 inches, instead of waiting till I get to 20 inches and then trying to do a pleat. Because that just seems like, by that point I would have missed the opportunity. If I do the full skirt, I would have missed the opportunity to do any type of decreasing. So anyway, so I'm kind of thinking about how that's going to look with this thicker fabric, but I want my mom's blessing sort of one more time before I get to that point. I honestly have no idea what I'd do if she said that she hates this, but I also am just counting on her being happy with it still. She saw the knitted swatch, she liked that. So I can't imagine it's going to be a thing. I did check the gauge a couple inches ago. And I felt like, not just that the gauge in 4 inches matches what I thought it did, because I had to do some math on this. My gauge is a little bit, it's like 18 per 4 inches instead of 20. So I divided everything by 5 stitches in an inch and multiplied it by 4.5 stitches in an inch, because that's what I got. So I cast on less, and I'm gonna have to manipulate all the numbers throughout, which is fine. I'm comfortable with doing that. But I'm still matching that gauge, and more importantly, in the round, it is the dimension that it's supposed to be. So, so the bottom of the skirt is just about spot on. So anyway, so I'm trucking along with that. That's been taking more of my time this week than other knitting, but I am still also working on my baby blanket. So this was just my simple crochet baby blanket. It's a little bigger than last time I shared it with you. I know last time I was kind of lamenting that as you get bigger in a granny square, of course it takes longer to do this row than it took to do a row down here. But I am happy with how it's coming out. It's starting to look very orange, but the good news is we're getting away from that. So, so I'm just about at the point in here where it's going to start heading towards a sort of gray blue. And I think that'll kind of soften the color, because right now it's a little bit intense and vibrant, and I didn't want it to be this in your face orange, but I think it'll be really good as it kind of goes towards a little bit more of a neutral. and then towards that light gray blue. Yeah. So those are the projects that I've been working on in terms of knitting and crochet almost exclusively. I know I have so many other WIPs, but with the spinning and with working on all kinds of different spins, I haven't been working on that many other knitted or crocheted things. So in terms of spinning, I'm working on all the same things I talked about last week, except I added one more thing in the mix. And that is, if you saw my Instagram post last night, a new, it's not new, it's new to Tour de Fleece. It's new to posting about it on Instagram, but this is yet another sweater spin. It's contrasting yarn for a sweater spin, and what it is this beautiful fiber from Nikki Slip. I'm trying to grab the tag here to see. Yeah, she just calls it her silk blend roving combo. So Nikki Slip will sell you these huge combo spin. She'll dye 2 colorways up to as much as you want. So this is 1 pound. So it's 8 ounces of the one colorway, 8 ounces of the other. You can kind of see the difference in there. The one is very rainbow bright, and then the other one is sort of a more dull, like autumn rainbow. So together they sort of, it's going to be vibrant, but I think it will make these neon colors a little bit more subdued. That was my goal. Now, I previously had spun some of this and rewound it on a storage bobbin. And the goal is a 2-ply sport weight, maybe light sport weight. And that's what I've been getting. And I have actually a couple of these bobbins. I've spun, actually, believe it or not, this is a lot less than 1 pound. I've spun quite a bit of this, but I really just kind of missed it. Just the silk blend fiber spins so smooth. It's so enjoyable. I really love her silk blend. I actually got, after this, I got a couple more pounds from different colorways to use for other projects. So this is going to be pretty vibrant. It's going to be a little bit of a surprise for me as it comes out, because I'm spinning it sort of randomly. And sort of mixing the neon part and the other part. I'm not doing it as a combo draft where I constantly have both of them. I'm doing it more of a combo spin, a chunk of this, a chunk of that. And this is going to be, I think it's going to be contrast for a sweater that's going to be gray. I have a sport weight and a DK option for like basically gray commercial yarn, that a few different options actually in my stash. And I had pictured gray with then a vibrant sort of a rainbow, because I wouldn't naturally wear this alone. I feel like this would, even when it's blended and becomes less vibrant, I think it'd be too much for me. So my goal is to do it as the contrast colorway. And the reason I'm not telling you a project is because I have too many in mind. I'm definitely thinking about doing the pressed flowers cardigan. I have that pattern. I have the right amount of, I think Elizabeth labeled silky wool, but also in a gray color, but also Barocco Remix Light in a gray color. Those both are DK weight, but they're both pretty much sport weight. So, so I'm thinking about either one of those with this, but I really have to have the spin done to be confident that that's gonna, and then swatch it, to be confident that that's gonna be the right thing. And they're 2 very different grays. One's cooler, one's warmer. They're a little different texture. They're different components. So I was thinking this would be the silky wool Elizabeth Lavold one, but I'm not positive. And I'll kind of have to see how this spins up, how it plies, how it looks knitted, and then how it looks knitted in a mosaic knitting pattern versus stranded colorway, because I have another option that I could do from, I'm trying to think what other color work pattern I was thinking about for this. It's somewhere in my queue. Oh, Alicia Plummer, Little Plums Two Little Plums, I don't know, Alicia Plummer. So I have one of her patterns, a Starry Night top, which is really beautiful. And that also is sort of a sport to fingering kind of a thing. I think the gauge works for the main yarns that I have. So I'm not sure which way I'm going to go with this, and part of it's going to depend how much yarn actually comes out of this, how happy I am with all of the colors, whether I'd have to heavily manage the colors, like remove certain parts of the yarn for another project because they clash too much with the grays, which gray it goes with. There's going to be kind of a lot of factors there, but that's what I'm envisioning for this. I don't think it's going to be just a plain sweater. I think it's going to be contrast for something a little more neutral. So anyway, so I'm excited to kind of start back up on that spin. As always, can't just work on one thing. I get a little bit too distracted by something else shiny and bright. And that literally is what happened, is like this. I saw this out of the corner of my eye while I was spinning. I was like, you know what? I need to kind of get back to that. So I've got a lot of bobbins. On each of my skeins, I have a bobbin or two that are half full. I have a lot of spindles that are half full. So I don't really tend to post those as much for Tour de Fleece because it's so much cooler to see a full bobbin. So, I'm kind of in this situation where I've got a lot going on that I'm not really posting as much, but I'm hoping to kind of fill some of those things in this last week of Tour de Fleece. I also have realized that posting in a really structured way and telling you everything I'm working on that day was not me. I did that for the first 2 weeks almost, and it's really hard. It's like writing these descriptions. It's totally manageable to do it one time a week, but to do it every day started to get like, who am I writing this for? And are you reading it? And is it worth doing that for you or for me, for my records? It kind of was like sucking some of the joy, like adding a little too much pressure for me. So you may find if you follow me on Instagram, you're still going to see pictures of some of what I'm doing during Tour de Fleece, but it's not going to be as rigid of a structure as I was trying to do. And that's fine. You know, you live and you learn. I am still trying to post every day because that was one of my goals, was that not only would I spin every day, but I would post about it every day. So I'm going to give a few more updates this week with that. And then I kind of have I'm going into this sort of busy week with wrapping up work before I take a week off, as well as some family stuff that's going on. So you probably won't see me next weekend, but hopefully the weekend after that, I may have some finished objects to share. So one of the things that I'm going to do when I am off for a week is participate in Sock Week. I thought about this a lot. I follow Nitty Natty. I love her YouTube channel and watch a lot of her videos. I was a Love and Stitches member for a while. I might join it again, but currently I'm not. But I decided last night I'm doing Sock Week. There's no pressure. If I don't finish a whole sock, fine. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about knitting socks and my history with knitting socks. And I know that I do talk a lot about machine knitting socks, which is a little bit different. And I also talk quite a bit about mending socks. In fact, this week I mended 3 commercial socks, and that's also a thing that I do. But I've never hand knit a sock, a full sock. I've started a lot of them. I've had like 10 partial socks that happened. And I don't know, I can't do it. So I'm gonna try this time. And I feel like maybe having that motivator of having the Sock Week events, she's doing some Zoom events, that sounded fun to me. There's like a theme around it of the great outdoors. I kind of felt like, you know what, I'm gonna try. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this sock WIP that I currently have, that I haven't shared before because it's been basically in hibernation. And that is the Bear Paw sock. It will not surprise you if you know me that this is Dre Renee Knits. This is a DK weight sock pattern. And last year I thought to myself, this same time last year, I was going to be going on vacation, an actual vacation. And I was like, you know what? People knit socks on vacations. Never mind the fact that I felt like I couldn't take the socks on the plane because they have these tiny sharp needles. But I definitely thought I was going to knit a sock on vacation. So the Bear Paw sock is DK weight, and I thought that would be more approachable. I bought the pattern. Don't regret buying the pattern. I'm going to make these eventually, but I pulled 2 of my hand-dyed yarns out of my stash, and they are bright, so prepare your eyes if you need them. So this is my colorway. It's like a neon sort of variegated neon green and yellow. It's called Happy All the Time. This is one of my repeatable colorways that, you know, anyway, when I thought I was going to sell hand-dyed yarn that I made. And then this is a non-repeatable colorway that I had a mistake, and then I just poured neon green in because I thought that would be fun. And this is called Zombie. So Happy All the Time and Zombie. All the Happy Zombies is what I'm calling this. And you can see this is both the skeins, the second half of each of the skeins. I balled these up while I was already on vacation. What a use of my time when I could have just taken a cake. But anyway, so this is 50 grams of each of them kind of skeined back up together. So I love the look of this. And Bear Paw, if you're doing 2 fingering weights, she does have suggestions. Andrea Mowry has suggestions about how to do it. So I started, and then I got into the 2x2 ribbing. And at some point I just lost steam, obviously, and basically haven't knitted on this. I very briefly had a moment where I was like, DPNs, I can use DPNs. And I had used them to cast on Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague. So then I like had a moment with DPNs where I was like, I'm not going to do magic loop anymore. I'm going to use DPNs. And DPNs, when I got to this ribbing, drove me nuts. I was not enjoying, this is a 3.5, I think. So a US 4. Correct. So it's a 3.5 or a US 4. So now I'm on these, I've ended up just like buying a needle where I could. This is a Haya, which I don't normally have a lot of, but it's just a really long Haya for magic loop. And these have been in a box for a year. I do not have a second one cast on yet, as you would expect if I've gotten this far. So anyway, someday I'm gonna finish these socks because I think they're going to be adorable, and I think they're going to be comfortable as like squishy slipper socks or like bed socks. But part of what caused me to stall was I'm doing this DK weight sock, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not going to wear a shoe with this. It's not going to be such a functional sock for me. I wear thicker socks maybe around the house sometimes when it gets cold. I do wear slippers, so I would wear a sock with a slipper. But I started kind of questioning my decision, not in terms of the yarn choice. I love the obnoxiously bright yarn. I stand by that. But in terms of the actual DK weight sock. And then once I put something down, because there are other things that come up, it just kind of, it got lost in the shuffle of doing a couple different test knits and doing all kinds of other things. So it is, someday I'm going to finish that. But in the meantime, I kind of feel like no pressure there. I'm going to try to do a fingering weight sock because you have to do a fingering weight sock for sock week. If I don't finish, I just am not eligible for prizes. Like, it's not, you know, high stakes. Nobody's going to come hunt me down. But I love the idea of being able to hand knit a sock. It's still, I don't think would be my go-to. I'm very much a sweater person. I like shawls too. I kind of like to do a little bit of everything. But I think it would be a nice skill to kind of have. And the bottom line is sometimes I see a pattern for a sock that's like a patterned sock, like a colorwork sock, or maybe it has a stitch pattern, that a slip stitch pattern or whatever, that I see and I'm like, I want to be able to make that, and I can't make it on my machine. So having a circular sock machine is awesome. I'm really happy with my circular sock machine, and I currently have a sock drawer. I have like 24 pairs of socks or something crazy. That may be an exaggeration, but it's definitely well over 10. So, so I have a lot of socks already, many of which are nice, and a couple were the early ones. But it's just, I've been able to do so many more socks because of the machine. So I wouldn't give that up. And I still think some of my fancy sock yarn is going to be used for gifts, which I'm going to machine knit, because, you know, you can't guarantee somebody else is going to wear it anyway. So I like the thought of hand knitting a sock as a gift for somebody else still to me right now is like far-fetched. I say as I'm knitting a dress out of handspun yarn for my mom. But being able to do it on the machine, that's a very reasonable project for me. Given that sock yarn, especially nice sock yarn, especially self-striping sock yarn, is pretty expensive. So, so with the expense of the gift being up here, you know, pretty much what I would normally spend, a little less than what I'd normally spend, spending an hour or two on something because I'm machine knitting it and then grafting it and finishing it and blocking it, that all seems like a pretty reasonable gift for somebody. And I don't, you know, I spend a lot of time on some gifts for people, but the bottom line is there are too many people in my life that I love and care about to spend 80 hours on everybody. So, so it just ends up kind of being a decision that I make. And if you're somebody who always knits for other people and doesn't do a lot of what some people call selfish knitting for yourself, good for you. I do a lot of selfish knitting, and I actually don't consider it selfish. So it's part of my self-care, and it's super important to me. And I am the most knit-worthy person that I know, because if I don't wear something, then I'll frog it and reuse the yarn. If I am wearing something, then I'm going to mend it and maintain it. So, so I like to think of it as a positive thing, but, and I don't want to put too much pressure on somebody else that I spent 100 hours on this. I hope you don't throw it in the machine, in the washing machine, you know, that's kind of unfair. So at any rate, so I am going to be knitting these for myself, very much so. I am hoping that I can do it. The goal is to make one sock, fingering weight yarn, in that sort of 8-day time period wherein I conveniently had already requested off work. So yeah, so I'm hoping I can do it. Now the fun part is the yarn choice. So the last thing I wanted to kind of talk to you about is, I don't know what yarn I'm going to use for these, but I have a great stash of sock yarn. So one of my thoughts is just using this yarn from a project that you saw at the very beginning of this podcast a few months ago. This is hand dyed by me. And this is a really nice, this is a merino cashmere silk. Yes. So super soft. Again, I wish you could feel how soft this is. Super soft. I started making a cowl with this and then was like, meh, I wouldn't wear that enough. So I am debating two things with this. I'm debating doing this for the sock because it's so soft and silky. Maybe it would keep me going. But I also do know that socks on my feet, as soft as they may feel on my hands, don't feel all that different one to the next on my feet. So I'm also thinking about making a knitted bralette with this, because I think that would be a good use of a super silky yarn. And as I say that, I've made the decision it's not going to be this sock. Okay, so one decision made. So I've got a bunch of other yarns that I've thought about. Some of them are true intended sock yarns. So here's a sock yarn, a Potluck colorway, of course, from Hedgehog Fibers. I think it's pretty. It's really a rich blue. There's some pinks in there. There's some lighter blues. There's some sort of rusty speckles in there. This could be fun. It's on my list. This, I almost lost the ball band here. I got this color in a D-stash from somebody else. Artistic Lily is the dyer, and it's the pumpkin spice sock set. The little mini is downstairs. I had already caked it up, but the mini is like this kind of dark rusty color. I'm a pumpkin spice girl. So I am thinking about this. This is a 2-ply, so I tend to really like how these come out on my circular sock machine, which is an argument against this. Yeah, that's an argument against that. So I will do that on my circular sock machine. That's the nice thing about this is all of these sock yarns are going to be used at some point. This is my own hand dyed, again, when I thought I was going to sell yarn, which I think is actually exhausting and good for you if you do it. I'll buy your yarn. I dyed for myself, but not really for anybody else right now. So this is my fine twisty fingering base, which is a 75-25. And this is my colorway Cassiopeia, which I do like. And I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about this one. This would probably be, it'd be stripier, but a little bit more exciting for me than this. I love a variegated colorway on sock yarn, so I think right now I'm going this way. I have a Ruby and Roses that I absolutely love. The Thorned Beauty came with her rose box, wild rose box, something like that recently. This is beautiful. I kind of think this should be part of a shirt or bralette though. I only have this one skein of it, but I do have some really pretty bright purples and blues. So now that I'm seeing it, I think it's not going to be a sock. Her soft rose base is so soft that I almost feel like it can't be a sock. So let's talk about self-striping. So to go with this color, if I'm thinking in this sort of bright but jewel tone, you might say this is jewel tone, kind of grungy jewel tone, but then I've got this by Freckled Whimsy. This was part of the Wednesday Club. I was in the Wednesday Club, and this is I Cried My Little Black Heart Out. This was the March 2024. It's an 8-stripe repeat. 8 stripes sounds like that might keep my interest. So I'm kind of thinking this over this. This could be in another project that I've thought about. So I'm thinking about this one now. I've got a yak sock. Love a yak. This is superwash merino, 20% yak, 10% nylon. So that's not the same base that my other yak project is in. This is Nomadic Yarns, self-striping, Harvest Moon. This is very autumn. Although so is this. They're both very pretty. I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. I have one other self-striping to consider that I'm throwing in the mix, and this is from Tia's Terrific Threads. She sends self-striping yarn in a gobstopper. I have yet to knit one of these with my circular sock machine or otherwise because it comes as a gobstopper and it's so beautiful. I have like 5 of these right now. This is Malibu Barbie. It looks to me, so it's got the royal blue, it's got a lighter version of the royal blue. It's got this awesome green that would go with my zombie socks. It's got a teal, so that's 4 sort of cool colorways. And then it looks like it has a light pink, a sort of rosy pink, and a hot pink. Oh, and it has a less hot pink. I think it has 8 colors. So I think this is also an 8. I'm not sure how many Harvest Moon has. I think probably less than 8. But gosh, isn't that fun? It's like, how can you knit this? I don't think I can do it yet. I don't know. All right. One last thing I'm considering. So I'm still looking at these. Realistically, I'm looking at this. But from a local dyer, Haverland, I got a few sock yarns from her. This was her Natural History sock set, Mandarin Duck, and that's just fantastic. The little mini is a black and white speckle, which I've thought about pulling out of here and using for maybe a self-striping because of the fact that I feel like you could just use this for the whole sock. I don't know that you really need a contrasting color. And actually I have a solid skein like this royal blue from Nanette Wake. So I could use a different contrast heel toe and keep this for something else. Although it, you know, obviously she intended for it to go with this. This is just beautiful. I don't know. I don't know what would keep my interest and make me the most likely to finish a sock. And boy, I kind of got a thing going on here. Look how well these kind of go together. I would not use them together, but that's kind of the mood, I guess, that I have right now. So I'm going to think about these three a lot more. And I'm going to kind of dream about this and whether I would even be willing to ungobstopper this. It's actually, I don't normally keep a ball of yarn like this because when you tightly wind a ball, it puts stretch on the yarn. So it's probably not good to keep this like this forever. Kind of what I'm going with. I'm not sure. But I have like a whole week to decide. You can't cast on until the 20th, 21st. I don't know. So I think it's the 21st. So I'm excited to be a part of Sock Week. I think it's going to be fun. And I just am at the point where I'm trying not to pressure myself too much about any of my crafting because as much as I spend a lot of time working on things, I do spend time working on a lot of different things. And that means I don't get as many things done as fast. And that's okay. As long as I'm still enjoying myself, that's the key point. The few things that have a time element to them, like gifts for me at this point, that's fine. I set a realistic timeline. I do think I'm pretty realistic. I had a year to make a dress. I'm going to finish the dress in that timeline. I gave myself a couple months to crochet a granny square baby blanket. That's definitely achievable. It's actually kind of close to a baby size anyway. So yeah, so I feel good about that. I'm not, as much as I think about it, I'm not signing up for test knits or things like that. The sock week, I waffled on a lot because of the pressure that it adds, kind of like Tour de Fleece. However, it's a finite amount of time. I'm trying to make it fun, and I'm hopeful that it'll give me the right amount of motivation to get through an actual sock. I think once I get through one sock, I'm gonna feel excited about making more socks and realize like, oh, this is doable. That's what I'm aiming for. I've never tried a heel. And I feel like it's totally doable. I just have never gotten to that point. So anyway, so I'm gonna do sock week and I probably won't check in with you until after that. And hopefully I will have one adult sized fingering weight shorty sock to share with you from one of the above yarn options or one of the other 100 skeins of fingering weight yarn that I also have in my stash. So, so we'll kind of see where it goes. But thank you for joining me today. If you have strong feelings about any of these, or if you have a good suggestion for the best sock pattern that you think is going to keep me interested, considering I've failed to knit a sock like 8 times, please feel free to share that. Yeah, that's it. I hope you have a good day.